What's up everybody, Brian here, back again with another video, and today we are only going to focus on one rod, and we're going to do a review of the US market Megabass Destroyer FMJ, which stands for Full Metal Jacket. Now this rod, I used it all last season, and this is actually my second one because I blew one up about halfway through the summer. I'll explain that in a second. So, this rod is marketed as a jig rod, first and foremost. Now, I did use it almost all summer for throwing a jig. I would say that the weight that it excels at is anywhere between 3/8 and 5/8. So 3/8, half, and 5/8 is this rod's sweet spot. This rod is technically a 6 power, which is basically a medium heavy, maybe a little stiffer than a medium heavy, but by most rod companies' classifications, this would be kind of considered a medium heavy, not really a heavy. This rod's action, however, is extremely fast. This is a very, very stiff rod. It's extremely sensitive, has titanium, oh no, actually this is, these are stainless guides with SIC inserts, and it's your typical Megabass quality with being extremely light. It's not as light as an NRX. An NRX is still a little bit lighter, but the NRX also has a lot less stuff going on in the handle. It's a lot more minimalist. So I think, and the recoil guides on an NRX are lighter, so I think that's where some of that extra lightness comes from in the NRX. So this is still an extremely lightweight rod. All the Destroyer US versions are, Destroyers in general. But, so it's really light. It's about I'd say a little heavier than a medium heavy, but I would still, if I was going to classify it, I'd say it's a medium heavy. It's a 6 power Megabass rod. The action is extremely fast, and if you stay tuned in this video, I'm going to do some rod comparisons between this and 2 other Megabass rods, and then I'm also going to compare this with a rod that I think is actually its basic equal in the Gloomis line, which is the 873 Carolina rig rod. So I'm going to show you guys how the action on this rod compares to a couple Megabass rods and a Gloomis rod. So don't click away from this video or just skip to that portion if you don't want to hear me talk anymore. So the positives on this rod: it's extremely sensitive, it's very lightweight, it's easy to fish. The fit and finish obviously is crazy. If you've never seen a Megabass Destroyer rod or any of the Megabass rods in person, the guide wraps are immaculate. Like, you pick up a St. Croix, a $400 St. Croix rod, or a $500 or $400 to $600 Gloomis rod, it looks like kindergarten compared to what Megabass does with their fit and finish on the guide wraps. So these guides are immaculate. It's perfect. There's even like little color flourishes. The line wraps go from like a gold to a green to purple. There's like one strand of purple to green to gold. So it's like this perfect little pattern on every single guide. All the wraps are perfect. There's no weird, nothing's crooked, nothing is misaligned. Like St. Croix. Like, I have St. Croix Legend X, and I've had St. Croix Legend Tournament Bass, and I've had St. Croix Legend Glass rods, and all of them have the guides. You can find something wrong with the wrapping on the guides. Now, St. Croix and those companies, they outsource the guide wrapping to ladies who like work out of their house, like old ladies. So no shot, not disrespect to the old ladies that do all the guide wrapping on St. Croix's rods, but you guys don't hold a candle to the Japanese. The Japanese fit and finish and wrapping on these rods is just out of this world. It's like comparing a Ferrari to a Honda Civic. Well, I don't know. Honda Civics are actually pretty good, but I don't know. A Geo Metro, put it that way. As far as guide wraps, I'm just talking about the fit and finish and guide wrap quality, not the rod quality. Anyway, one downside to Megabass rods. Now, my Destroyer USA ones aren't doing this, but I have other rods that do this. The locking nut, the glue, this is a cosmetic piece over a thicker plastic piece. Sometimes this cosmetic piece actually comes disconnected from the underlying plastic screw piece. Now, I have older Megabass rods that do that, and you have to reapply the glue, like whatever glue you got, and then reattach it and then let it dry, and then it's fine again. But just because you're buying a $400 to even, I have a $600 Megabass rod where the housing on the locking nut actually comes off. It happens on all the Megabass rods. They need to redo they need to change how they do this locking nut, because it looks great, it works fine, except after you use it a lot and you're untwisting it and twisting it, the glue on this can definitely break out and you'll get a loosened cap to this and it'll slide around. Kind of sucks, but it's one of the quirks with Megabass rods across all of their price points. The cork. So the cork on Megabass Destroyer rods are average. You're not getting really high-end cork. So if you buy one of these rods, I highly suggest putting a U40 cork seal on these rods right when you get them to keep the filler from falling out. So yes, you're paying for a $400 high-end Japanese rod, but they use cork that's like probably you'd find on a $200 rod. It's not anything special. The cork on like St. Croix or Gloomis or some of the other companies are actually much softer and nicer and less filler. So pro tip, put some cork seal on this thing to keep the guides looking nice and not letting that filler fall out. So downsides of the Megabass rods. The warranty's not great. I could go on a whole rant about the warranty, but if you're not the original owner and you don't have a receipt for one of these rods and you break it, Megabass will not replace it. You have to have a receipt from the origin of purchase, preferably from a authorized Megabass shop. And you have to have that. They actually want a copy of that. You have to either take a picture of it and email it to them or actually send them a photocopy. They will not service your rod without having a copy of the receipt. Kind of sucks, but it is what it is. So if you buy these on the aftermarket, beware that you're kind of raw dogging it on the warranty and you're not going to get any support from Megabass if you smash it or break it. As far as me, this is my second one of these. I was an idiot and I was flipping a jig around some grass outside of some reeds. I flipped my jig into the reeds, and it was a half-ounce jig. I flipped it into the reeds. I got a bite. I set the hook on the fish, and the fish wrapped around reeds. Now, if you've ever fished against reeds, they are extremely strong. And I was fishing with 40-pound Power Pro braid, Power Pro Super Slick V2 braid on this. And I was trying to wrench the fish out to try and get him loose off that reed, and I pulled on it, and then the whole rod exploded. When I say exploded, I've never had a rod explode like that before. It sounded like a crack of lightning, and the rod broke like in 3 or 4 places. It broke here, and it broke up at the tip. It was like smash. And so I made a mistake of trying to wrench a bass out of very thick reeds on a medium-heavy jig rod. Not a good idea. I shouldn't have done it. I knew right when it cracked that it blew up that I was an idiot and I should have tried to shake that fish off, or I should have just gone into the reeds to get him. But anyway, so I did explode one of these things. This is not a flipping stick. I learned that the hard way. If you need to flip into heavy cover, do not use an FMJ. This rod is great for grass, not great for like lily pads, reeds, thick mats. This is not a flipping stick, okay? Do not flip with this. It is only a 6 power. So I let the stiffness of this rod and how fast it is kind of deceive me a little bit. And I thought, oh, I could flip into the reeds. No. You got to go up to like a 7 or 8. 7.5 or 8 power Megabass rod to really be a flipping stick. This is more of a all-around medium heavy. So anyway, that's enough on the rod. So the goods, sensitive as heck, very light, really fun to fish, perfect fit and finish. This is like a Ferrari of fishing rods as far as like quality from top to bottom. Negatives, the glue will come undone at some point with these if you use them a lot and you hold on to your rods for a while. This is the weak point of the grip. Also negatives is the cork is not a high-end cork and you will have to seal it to keep that filler in. Also negative, they do not come with hook keepers. So I had to add on a hook keeper. You can get these Fuji keepers, they're like $4, or you can go on eBay and get a mass quantity of these from China, like a cheap Chinese version. Well, they're all cheap Chinese version, but you can get like 10 packs of these things for like $2 on eBay. So if you're a Megabass or have Shimano rods that don't have hook keepers, don't buy the $4 Fujis off of Tackle Warehouse. Go on eBay, buy a bulk pack of these, and just have them sitting around forever. Anyway, I'm going to go right over and we're going to do some rod comparisons and show you guys how this rod kind of the action is in comparison to a couple other similar rods to this one. So thank you for watching. I'm going to cut over to the other side of the room. All right, so I'm going to show you really quick using a method that I've explained in other videos. I'm going to show you kind of how the FMJ's action compares to some similar rods. So right here is the Orochi 2nd Gen XX power perfect pitch. This is actually a 7 power. So this rod is 1 power heavier than the FMJ. However, the perfect pitch is a more versatile rod, has a way more parabolic bend. People like to use a perfect pitch for 6-inch mag drafts, for frogging, for swim jigs. It's a really versatile stick, and you'll see why in a second. The FMJ is what I would consider an extra fast action. So check this out. This is really interesting. So the power is heavier on the perfect pitch. However, look at the action. The perfect pitch is a way more parabolic rod. The FMJ is extremely fast, very stiff. So that's why the FMJ is a jig rod, and the perfect pitch is kind of an all-around rod that is actually really versatile. So a lot of people like to think that the perfect pitch is a jig rod. I would actually say the perfect pitch is kind of just your all-around heavy action rod. You can do a lot of stuff with the perfect pitch. You can frog, you can throw swim jigs, you can throw spinner baits, you can Texas rig, you can throw jigs with it. It's not a one-trick pony, whereas the FMJ is definitely a bottom contact, stiff one-trick pony rod. So if you want versatility and save a little money, go with a perfect pitch. But if you're a jig fanatic and you want, the tip of the spear for jig rods, you want the FMJ. So that's a comparison with that. So I'm also, while we're on the Megabass camp, this is the 8-power Megabass Faust. So this is not a U.S. market rod. This is a Japanese market destroyer. It's been out for a few years. So the Faust is actually my current, or what I'm going to use for jig rod. I'm sorry, it's what I'm going to use for frogging next year. It's going to be my main frog rod. This is an 8-power, so this is 1 more power heavier than the perfect pitch. Remember, the FMJ is a 6-power. So let's look at 2 powers higher than the FMJ. And this is actually kind of interesting. So the Faust is an 8-power and is still got more of a parabolic, softer action than the FMJ. So that just shows you how stiff the FMJ really is as far as its action. It's definitely extra fast. The Faust is not as bendy as the perfect pitch, but the FMJ is still stiffer. So 6-power versus an 8-power. You'd think the 8-power is a broom handle and is really stiff, but no, the FMJ definitely wins out in that respect. So the rod that surprisingly is really close to the action and power and the ratings, kind of overall with the FMJ, is actually the Gloomis NRX 873 CCR, which is the Carolina rig rod. So this one is rated up to the Carolina rig rod from Loomis is rated up to 3/4 of an ounce, but the FMJ is rated up to 1.25 ounces, which is weird to me. I think that the FMJ is only getting that rating up over 1 ounce because of how fast it is. But the truth is, watch these two. So this is the 873 NRX versus the Megabass FMJ Destroyer. Now, if you notice, these actions are almost dead similar. A lot of people say that the 873 CCR is like one of the best dragging rods, like for football jigs and Carolina rigs. A lot of people use the 873 for jigs. They use it for Texas rigs. It's just kind of known in the NRX line as kind of an all-around rod. The 873 is considered a little heavier than an 890 or 853 or 893. So it's considered to be like a medium heavy plus. So it's a little heavier than the other 3-power NRX rods. But to me, man, this action, they both look extra fast. So this kind of leads me to think that the FMJ could be used for dragging. I never use it for dragging football jigs, but just based on this alone, why not, right? I mean, you could use it definitely for football jigs. If the 873 CCR is like the best dragging rod ever, it has almost the same action as the FMJ as far as bend. Sorry, let me put my finger up a little bit. I mean, they're like mirror twins of each other. In fact, the Megabass has a slightly more curved bend, which is usually the case, than the Loomis. Because Megabass is kind of known for their blending of carbon weights to get a really smooth parabolic bend. So, I don't know, man. This rod is definitely lighter. The 873 is a little lighter. I wish I had a food scale to kind of prove that. But I mean, the NRX is about as light as you get. You can't really get a rod lighter than this. The FMJ comes close. So that's all I got for now. The FMJ is a cool rod. If you're a jig guy, it's kind of between this or a Gloomis 894C. Hope this helped you learn more about this rod and help inform a decision if you're looking to pick one up. Have a great day.